After building 7,437 side projects using Next.js, I think I finally am starting to get server actions, in particular the annotation use server. You see, most of us understand that when we read use client and when we put use client on top of our components, we want that to be a client component, a component that renders on the browser. Although there's some funny business that happens with the server as well. I'll link a video in the description below that gets into deeper detail on this. But generally, we understand use client means that this component will render on the browser. But what about use server? When you think of use client, the direct opposite sort of sounds like use server. But this we found is not true. I've had Lee Rob on the channel. He's explained to this very clearly that use server is not the direct opposite of use client. So what does use server really mean? To be honest, the best name for use server is use action. Think of use server as an abstraction of a post request. So anytime you write a server action with use server up top, well, it only is a server action fast use server up top. It is an abstraction of a post request. So when you think of it that way, you realize that use server is not the direct opposite of use client, but more so it's like this. Think of this line as the network boundary. The left side is the client, the right side is the server. Use server is a post request abstracted as a function which allows you to do whatever you want to do. It's just your regular standard API that you can call within a client component and it can do stuff on the server. The direct opposite of use client per se, where you can only do certain things on the server, is server only. Right? And you have direct access to this on Next.js. The best way to explain this is through code. So I have a nice, clean UI here with the Next.js project. And there's a couple things I want to show you. I have two buttons here. I have the first button, use client, the second button, use server, and a third button that's commented out that's server only. Let's start with the use client button. You can see here that when you click on the button, it should console log use client. So let's go to this page. Let me inspect element. Open my console. If I click use client, I see the console log there. Beautiful. Now, I see the second button that's use server. There is in the on click a function called click handler. Let's click onto that. And I see this is a server action denoted with use server that all it does is console log clicked in actions. Okay, so let's do that. So let's click use server. And how come I don't see anything on the inspect element on the console? Let's go to the server, and will you look at that? Clicked in actions, consoled out on the server, not on the client. And what's even cooler is if we go to the network tab, and I clear this, and I click use server again, you notice a request is made, and this is the post request I was telling you about. So server actions are nothing other than post requests, right? And there's cookies and all that type of stuff here. There's a lot of information here. But one thing that you need to understand, there's been a lot of videos of people saying, oh, I got hacked, my site got hacked, stuff got leaked because I used a server action. And people are using server actions the way you would use server only, right? So when you think of a server action, none other than a glorified post request, an abstracted post request per se, then you will do the necessary security checks, authorization checks, all that stuff, etc., etc. That being said, now that we understand this, let's comment out these buttons and uncomment this button. And if we click on get data, this is again a function called get data that returns the string data, and this is import server only. So let's click save. And would you look at that? This doesn't work. And the reason why it says you're importing a component that needs server only. That only works in server component, which is not supported in pages directory. So server only makes it that whatever function has this import can only be used on the server. So let's say I remove this use client and I hit save. It's still not going to work because I'm trying to use an on-click, right, which is a browser event. So I'm going to remove this right here, right? And all I'm going to do is I'm going to call data equals to get data, right? I'm going to make this function async. I'm going to await the result of this, and I'm just going to render data. And if I hit save and we go to the page, would you look at that? I finally get the data from my server only function. So I hope this makes it clear. I see a lot of people using use server but when really they're trying to use server only. Because what's great about server only is I can only use this in my server components, meaning there's a clear abstraction between, there's a clear line between my client and my server. So I can have a data access layer using import server only when I see a lot of people using use server to do so. Again, server actions are great. I love server actions, but you need to understand that server actions are an abstraction of a post request. There's a lot of great things you can do, especially with forms. It is fantastic, but a lot of people are using server actions as a data access layer when that is where server only should be used. I hope it made sense. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. I got a couple more videos coming out, so make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.